life can be broken down into very small pieces. Sales, as I said, sales is the same. You've got a big goal, or even life, however you want to put it. You've got a massive goal. That's your overarching thing. How do we break that down to the simplest parts to make it achievable? And then you have little wins every day.
Being a dad is one of the most rewarding roles we will ever have in our lives, but also can be one of the most overwhelming. Where you find yourself facing the pressures of juggling the demands of family, career, and life. This show features industry experts in mental health, social services, and personal development, along with resilient dad role models whose stories of overcoming the challenges of parenting will create a new vision for the life you and your kids deserve. I'm your host, Pat DiDomenico, and this is the Resilient Dad Show. Welcome back to another episode of the Resilient Dad Show. I'm your host, Pat DiDomenico, and today we have the pleasure of having a very humble man. He doesn't speak highly of himself enough, but Ashley Cooke, welcome to the show.
Hey, how are you?
Good, mate. I really appreciate you coming on. Like I said, you're one of the most humble people that I've actually met. You've had many achievements, such as representing Australia at a young age of 16. The founder of a supplementation company, Imperial Supplements, and the men's gym that you're starting, Unload, a mental health first aider, and also a husband and a father of three, most importantly. But thank you very much for coming on and willing to be sharing your story.
No problem. It sounds like a lot when you put it like that. It's great to be here. I think what we talk about is something that needs to be spoken about more. It's we've had some initial chats, and what we've spoken about is something that needs to be delved into a lot more deeply.
Definitely. Like you said, we've had some previous chats, and we could still talk for days, but we'll dive into the things that I think that will be definitely beneficial to the audience and men and dads out there that we're trying to influence.
Right.
So tell us a bit about your story, where it all started for you, and a bit about your childhood and leading up to your your turning point to what you're doing now.
Yeah, cool. So look, I was a swimmer. Growing up, I was a swimmer. We were in an elite squad, so we were coached by one of the best coaches. I like to think he's one of the best in Australia, but we had an elite team, so there was only 8 of us in the squad, and we had pretty high expectations. We were all national level swimmers, and then you do that on top of school. So we were doing, I can't remember the math, but I think it's something like 38 to 40 hours a week in the pool.
Wow.
And then you had school on top of that. So we'd be up early, train, go to school, finish school, go home and train again. So, it was a hectic life. I think as athletes, we gave up a lot of our life. We sacrificed a lot to do the sport that we loved, and that sort of set a stage for me in adulthood. I, coming out of school, decided that I wanted to be a highly decorated PE teacher. So I started studying sports and exercise science and education, dropped out of that, coincidentally with the time that, I got a new partner, and she had a 2-year-old at the time. So, I was 18. I wanted to become a dad and be that provider. So, I went, and part of that transition into full-time work was, it was tough. It was tough getting out to study. It was trying to go, because we were partying a lot, and we'd study and we'd drink and do all those sorts of things, and going from that to full-time work. But I got into the car industry, so I'm not sure if you know much about the car industry, but it's it's 55 plus hours a week at that stage. We were,
Yeah.
as a young salesperson, it was a lot of long hours.
Yeah.
Um, but what sport did for me was set me up for that. It was the dedication. It was, this is what you've got to do to achieve what you want to achieve. And then, what was it? It was nearly 20 years in the industry. So, you do that for long enough and it just becomes second nature. But part of that is you miss out on a lot of stuff. Like when our middle child was 4, I think she was, when she first started dancing, I missed her first dance recital because I was working.
Mm.
And even now, like, she's 11 now, and she still occasionally brings it up, like, "Hey, Dad, remember that time you used my dance recital?" I'm like, "Yeah, mate, I do." Like, it still grates me. Like, it's at that point in my life, work was my priority.
Yeah.
And I guess that sort of mindset led me down a path that I was working. So at the end of my career in the car industry, I was working close to 70 hours a week, running 2 departments. And it got to a point where I had a mental break. Like, it got too much. Trying to work those hours, plus be a good partner, be a good dad. It just, everything piles up and piles up and piles up. And it just got to a point where I'd had enough. And funnily enough, I brought it up earlier. Today is actually the 2-year anniversary of the day that it became too much.
Yeah.
So, and I was reflecting on it last night in the gym, because I sort of knew it was coming up. And I remember we had this recording today, and I went, "Hang on a second. Wait," so I'm like scrolling back through my photos in the gym, because there's a photo that I took on that day as a reminder of where I was at.
Yeah.
And it was a photo of me, just tears streaming down my face, because I'd had enough. Nothing made me happy at that point in my life. I was cranky all the time. My partner and I were fighting all the time. Alcohol was my outlet. I'd finish work, I'd come home, have a few beers. A few beers would turn into a 6-pack and a bottle of wine. And I just, that was my outlet. So in the gym last night, I'm reflecting. I'm like, wow, okay, it's the 2-year anniversary of the time where I made that decision. And, I mentioned before, I don't believe in fate. I believe we have control over our destiny, but our life is a series of choices.
Yeah.
So we come to a crossroad, and we make a choice. So we go that way or we go that way. And at that day, my 2 choices were: do I continue down this path of self-destruction, where it would lead me to an early grave? Or at that point in time, it was, do I jump off this hill that I'm standing on top of? Or do I choose to change my life and be, understand that there's more to me than this. There's more to my life. I've got 3 kids. I've got a great partner. At that stage, a company, and there was so much more to it that I sort of went, no, okay, we're going to fight.
Yeah.
So that was sort of the turning point of my life, where I went, dude, this isn't the person that, when you left school, this isn't the person that you wanted to be.
Yeah.
Doing 70 plus hour weeks, being cranky with everyone all the time. Like, I always thought I was the fun loving guy, and I love being around people and all those sorts of things. Actually, I started withdrawing myself from situations, to the point where when I finished work, I'd get my partner to order dinner, because I didn't want to talk to people. I'm out. I'm home. Don't want to talk to anyone. Shut the door, turn the lights off. I'm out.
Yeah.
So, it was a weird feeling coming down that hill going, we need to fight now. Like this is the start. This isn't the end.
Yeah.
Um, and I think the thing that I realized that day was I needed to channel my energy. It was my life was chaotic. I had so much stuff going on. There was just energy flying everywhere. So what I channeled it into is exercise. At that stage, it was just about changing my habit. And I think
Mm.
that's the thing that a lot of people don't understand. They'll go, I'm in a rut. I put on a heap of weight. I'm unhealthy. But nothing makes me happy. All those sorts of things that people, you think in that situation. But if you boil it down to the simplest thing to change, it's your habit.
Yeah.
Don't come home from work and crack a beer and sit on the couch and then don't move. What I had to change was I'd come home from work, I'd take off my work shoes, put on my runners, and just go for a walk.
Yeah.
And it was only half an hour. Like I'm not talking about hours upon hours. I'm talking about a half an hour walk every day, and I did that for 3 months. And it
Yeah.
was hard. It was hard at the start because I'm like, dude, I just want to sit down and have a beer. The kids wanted to play, and I said, guys, I want to play with you too. Daddy just has to do this, and I'll be back shortly.
Yeah.
Um, and then you sort of, they say 21 days makes a habit. So at the end of 3 months, and then like 21 days, only 3 weeks, but what I pushed it out to 3 months because 3 months, it became more of a lifestyle rather than a habit.
Yeah.
Now 2 years down the track, excuse me, 2 years down the track, if I don't get to go to the gym or if I don't get to go for my walk or whatever it may be, I start to get like antsy. I'm like, hey, like kids, I want to play, but just let me go for a quick walk. Or hey, let's grab, I'll grab my partner if she's on at work and say, right, let's go, and we'll all go. Like it becomes a way to channel everything, emotions, energy. If I'm frustrated at something, I'll go and lift heavy stuff. It's actually I take it out on the barbell and obviously my body, but it becomes a way to go, I'm really upset with what's going on at the moment.
Yeah.
I can go and lift really heavy stuff and better my body and my mental state.
Yeah.
So when I get home, I've left it at the gym.
Yeah.
I may be hurting physically, but I know that the physical hurt will only last a couple of days.
Yeah. Spot on. Spot
Um,
on.
it's been a journey.
Yeah. And, you know, for myself, similar, like in terms of the playing sport all my life and being, fairly active and competitive to then doing nothing as soon as you start working for yourself. The worst thing that, that we can do is just stop taking care of our health and stop moving because we think that that's the most important thing, that we don't even have a minute, half an hour, like you said, half an hour just to put your runners on and go for a walk. We don't even have that time. But we have time to stop at the local shop and grab a muffin and and whatever else that's not healthy for us.
It's small incremental stuff. It's not world breaking. It's literally chunk everything in life can be broken down into very small pieces. Sales, as I said, sales is the same. You've got a big goal, or even life, however you want to put it. You have a massive goal. That's your overarching thing. How do we break that down to the simplest parts to make it achievable? And then you have little wins every day. Hey, I went for another walk today, or hey, I've hit another PB in the gym. And you're breaking it down into those little parts so that at the end of the year, you've hit your goal.
That's it. That's it.
If I use gym terminology, it's progressively overloading your life. It's just that little bit more resistance every day. You put a little bit more resistance on you, you keep growing. Your muscles grow. That's how muscles grow.
Yeah.
And you get to the end of the year, you get to the end of the month or the week, and you've had a win.
Mm. And just focusing on what do you need to do today instead of how do I get to drop, 30, 40 kilos in such a short period of time? And that's, I guess a mindset that I had that, helped in some ways because I could get stuff done pretty quickly, but also didn't benefit me because it wasn't that lifestyle change, like you're saying, to that this is who I am. I was just looking for that quick result to escape from something.
Yeah.
So, swimming, heavily competitive when you were young, and then, finishing your swimming and going into, adult life, work and so forth. Do you find that, did you feel that in terms of the relief that you didn't have to wake up early in the morning swimming and, training at night, was something that at the time it seemed like a great thing, but
You know what? Looking back now, or even going back to then, so when it happened, when my career finished, when I hung up the goggles, however you want to put it,
yeah,
it was probably at that time in my life, it was probably the hardest 2, 3, 4 weeks of anything I'd ever lived. It was a complete shift of swimming was my identity. It was who I was. It was what I was known for. It was everything. To that stopping cold, I lost who I was. Looking back now, I sort of go, and hindsight's a wonderful thing, and I'm talking like it's 20 years later now. I look back now and I think to myself, you could have done more. Like you could have done a couple more laps, or you could have put in a little bit more effort, or I look back now, not with resentment on my time. I guess my mindset now is a little bit different. Back then you're a kid. You're in reality we're kids till we're 25, 26. Like you can't say we're adults at 21, 22, 23 because we're not. So at 16, all I wanted to do at 16 was go out with my mates and party. Friday, Saturday nights, they were out drinking booze and partying with their friends and girlfriends and all those sorts of things. Friday night, I was in the pool, coming home, going to bed early so I could get up and train again Saturday morning. Like at 16, I wanted to do that. Then you get through that and you do that a couple of times. You're like, actually, you know what? This is terrible. Wake up with a hangover. I'm wasting money I don't have on alcohol. The girls, they don't mean anything. Like you get to that point and you're like, what have you done? And at that age, it's sort of it's a big realization to sort of go, you made a decision. It was the wrong decision. Now you just got to deal with it.
Yeah.
And I think, so I met my partner when I was 18. So it was a couple of years after I stopped. And I guess, her and her daughter, or our eldest daughter, shifted my focus. I got to be a role model. I got to be a dad at a very young age, which sort of grounded me a little bit, because you got to grow up pretty quickly. As you know, when you got someone that you got to help raise, you're sort of like, I can't go and do that anymore. I can't go and get on the piss with the boys Friday, Saturday, Sunday night. You've got to sort of, I say grow up, but that's not what I mean. Like you get grounded pretty quickly.
Yeah. You can't just be as loose as you were as a teenager.
I used to be loose, just not as loose.
not as loose. Not as often.
Exactly.
But yeah, because obviously your family needs your time and your attention, and just even that is a huge responsibility as an 18-year-old. I had my first son at 30. I couldn't imagine being any younger, to be honest. So that's huge in itself.
Yeah.
Um,
And
so
look, there's no doubt you sort of, it's a thing of just necessity. You sort of, you have to, you learn as you grow, She turned 21 last month, and part of that 21st speech was, you know, what I love the most is that we've grown up together. Like she was 2 when I was 18. So, we have literally matured together. It was phenomenal.
yeah, that's awesome. And you being so caring and open and willing to take on that responsibility at such a young age is a huge thing. Can you tell us a bit about more like with your upbringing with your parents and the relationship? Like, did that help to contribute to you being the way that you were and taking that on at such a young age?
Yeah, no doubt. So, my mother, well, my mum, sorry, not my mother, my mum, I've got, she's a
Yeah,
lovely lady. She left my biological father before I was born. Um, so he wasn't there whilst I was growing up through reasons that
yeah,
nothing to do with me. Um, so, my dad or my stepfather, he's been around pretty much my entire life. Like my next brother Dan's only 18 months younger than me. So, he's been there as long as I can remember. Um, and I guess part of that is part of being in that circumstance is exactly why I am the way I am. I always I've always treated my eldest daughter like she's my own daughter because in reality she is. Like I've been her dad since she was 2. So
yeah,
we're talking 19 years
mm,
of me being her dad. So you know, similar situation. My dad's my dad. He
yeah,
raised me with a roof over my head. He paid for all my sporting and my schooling and all those sorts of things. Um, and he was a role model. Um, and yeah, it is certainly made me the person I am.
mm,
I'm coming out of that situation. So, but then, fast forward through that, I met my biological father when I was 21. Um, and growing up, I always thought I'd hate him. I always thought, I'm going to meet this prick who's never been there through my entire life, and where have you been, and why weren't you there for me in the tough times and all those sorts of things. But I met him, and we now have a phenomenal relationship. We talk all the time. He's got an amazing relationship with his grandkids. I actually think that he pours
that's
a lot of
awesome.
the that he missed out on with me into the grandkids, and you know, I think it's one of those things that we spoke earlier about tenacity and never giving up, and being the best version of yourself. I think had he given up when Mum left him before I was born, and just this is it, this is the end. I read a story today about I was a big Power Rangers fan growing up. The Green Ranger passed away the other day after a fight with his wife, ex-wife. And had my biological father gone down that path, I wouldn't know who I am. I wouldn't know where I've come from. There's us meeting and us having our relationship now has spun off into so much other stuff. Like, my cousin and I are really good friends, and we've actually, our sons are all just about the same age, and they play. And there's so much stuff that's come off the back of it
Yeah.
that as a like late teenager, I would never have imagined.
Yeah.
It's certainly a case of don't give up.
No, and it's great that you had your dad, non-biological dad, there through, your whole life and to support you, and that you have that relationship with him, and that you're able to reconnect with your biological father after. And because, for most of my life, my father wasn't present. And pretty much when my parents split up for good when I was 13, one of the next times I saw him was the day that my brother passed away. And then not long after that, when I reconnected with him, he was, living in someone's garage, and he was still drinking alcohol first thing in the morning. So that ability to stay positive, that, you're, just because of circumstances or whatever it may be, in your control, not in your control, like, continue to be the best version of yourself, so that one day when that opportunity comes, because I honestly believe that there is always that sense of curiosity from kids, regardless of what is said to them or not, that one day they'll be curious, and it might not be till who knows when that time may be, but why not make the most of everything and live the best life that you can? So when that opportunity comes, you're there, you're ready to show up. And, your dad's had the ability to have a great relationship with his grandkids, where had he not stayed on course, that wouldn't exist.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you've hit the nail on the head. I think it doesn't matter what the situation is, and there's always going to be a situation where it feels like shit. Whether your kids have said something to you because it's been put into their head, or whatever it may be, there's always going to come a time where they'll be curious. And for me, the curiosity came from, I wanted to know whether or not I had any other siblings.
Yeah.
That's where my journey to find who my biological father, that's where it started, because I went, I'm a dad now. I want to know if there's anyone else in my life that should be in my life in terms of a family member. And I actually, after Mum and I had a talk about it, and she told me what his name was eventually, I rang my uncle, who was the only one on the phone book. And it was the funniest conversation. So his wife picked up the phone, and I said, "Hey, it's Ashley. Is Wayne there?" And Auntie Sandy went, "Did you say your name's Ashley?" I'm like, "Yeah, Wayne's my uncle." And she put the phone down, and she just started screaming. She's like, "Wayne!" So anyway, it was hilarious. And then, yeah, we met, and we're what are we, 15 years down the track, and have a great relationship with the entire family. My auntie actually works at the school that all my kids have gone to, and her kids, her youngest daughter was friends with my eldest daughter. Like, Townsville's really small. We're 200,000 people, but I think the interconnectivity of the way that all ended up was incredible, and just it's a testament to just never giving up.
Yeah. No, definitely. And I'm very glad that 2 years ago you made that choice to not give up, because
Me too.
There's been a lot of amazing things that have happened since then. But can you share with us a bit about, in terms of those habits that you started to change that turned into lifestyle, a lifestyle? What were, just the initial steps, I guess, that you made?
The initial step, I think the first step was more so about recognizing what was going on. So, as I said, it got to a fairly drastic point for me. But looking back now, there was so many, I guess, signs prior that something wasn't right. But from that point on, it was more so about just making sure that if something wasn't right at the time, I found a way to either express it, deal with it, or process it. That were my three steps. So
Yeah.
if I could talk about it, whether it be to my partner, whether it be to my mates, whether it was a stranger to a point, like if I got to a point where I went, hey, something's not right here, I need to talk. That was the first one. Then there was dealing with it. That was, dealing with it in terms of, do I need to go and exercise? Do I need to, I find that I'm normally a pretty reserved person. But part of, I guess, dealing with that depressive episode, I made it very public. It was a lot of people sort of went, "What are you doing? This isn't you. You shouldn't be talking about these sorts of things." But I made it a very, very public. I guess it was a public event of the way I dealt with it, because everything was put on social media. Every thought I had, every emotion I was feeling, with photos. I hate being in front of a camera.
Yeah.
Because at that point I was like 145 kilos or something. But I made sure that every emotion I felt was shared. And then there was processing it at the end of that. So, being able to realize that it's a journey. It's not, that point in time is pretty wild. You can have a lot of emotions. You can feel like it's never going to get better. You can feel like the world's against you. Your missus hates you, your kids hate you, all those sorts of things. But it's just a moment. 100 years, give or take, depending on how long you live, but 100 years is a bloody long time.
Yeah.
And that one moment can't define your entire life. So there was that. Then I guess changing the habit was more so, as I said, it was tough completely changing what I did when I got home from work. And it wasn't so much a matter of, the sun's still up, I'll go for a walk. It was, I made a conscious choice that every single day, no matter what time I got home, whether it was light, dark, pouring rain, whatever, I went for a walk. That habit had to change. So that's your physical habit. And then, off the back of that were those mental habits that it's hard to recognize when something's not right while you're in the moment. But with when you get at the back of it, you go, that there was something there. There was something that wasn't quite right. And you sort of, you register it. And then when that happens again, the light bulb comes on. You're like, hang on, this is it. It's happening again. How can I do this better? And I think, a part of that is being able to express yourself to a point. Like, I know there's a lot of the, it ain't weak to speak and all those sorts of catchphrases, but for me, it's about action. It's not about a catchphrase, because most, 90% of the people that are dealing with this aren't about to go and say, hey, I need help. Can you come and talk to me? No one in their right mind is going to have that conversation. It's about education around your mate. When after I got off the back of it, I went and did the mental health first aid certificate, purely so that if I ever saw anyone else in crisis, I knew what to do.
Yeah.
It was about if I saw someone that wasn't having a fun time, just reaching out and going, "Hey, mate, is everything okay?" I've realised, I've recognised that something's not quite right. You're not being yourself. Do you want to talk about something? Because, and look, a lot of times they're going to say no. No, mate, everything's fine. It's sweet. I'm just dealing with some stuff. But that one time that they need help, if someone has reached out to them and said, "Hey, man, I recognise something's not right. Do you want to talk about it?" I guarantee you that point in their life, they'll just unload everything will just come out, emotions, feelings, and it's almost like a volcano. That's the
Yeah.
easiest way to describe it. Was when you get to that point, when you get to that tipping point, you can't stop it. When it comes out, it comes out. It's actually it's a wild ride.
Yeah. And like you say, you can generally feel at first that discomfort or that unease, and it builds up, and then hopefully you get an opportunity, or you have ways of dealing with that and understanding the patterns. Oh, wait a minute, this again. I know this feeling. I need either, like you said, go move, run, walk, move, push some weights, go
Yeah,
talk to someone, and understand those patterns. It's even for myself, it's something I'm slowly learning. I'm able to make that change quicker, where it may have taken a lot longer before. And as you're just becoming a little bit more aware of your feelings and your emotions, it helps to not erupt like you mentioned, like in terms of like a volcano.
yeah, and it sounds really cliche, but it's about being self-aware. There's no one that knows you better than you.
Mm.
Um, it's now 2 years down the track, I recognize that my heart rate increases. I get, as you said, I get that feeling in my chest that I'm like, no, this something's not right. Um,
Yeah.
and fortunately, I've got a good network around me now that if someone recognizes that I'm changing to that, if they recognize that that's not right, they'll go, "Hey, dude, go for a run," or "Go to the gym," or
Mm.
"Hey, come and sit down. Let's have a coffee. Let's have a chat."
Yeah.
Um, and the best part is that we've moved past the "let's go and have a beer," because alcohol's depressive and those sorts of things. Don't get me wrong, I love a beer, but
Yeah.
in that moment, beer is not the right option.
No.
In
No,
that
definitely.
moment, beer, drugs, all of that stuff is not the right option. It'll lead you in a path that's not where you want to be.
No. It's like a temporary escape, but at the end of the day, the issue is still going to be there at the end.
100%.
Uh, and is there a time where you've been able to pick that up in someone else and been able to help them?
Yeah, well, funnily enough, it happened today. So I went for a walk at lunchtime. We've got a hill in the middle of the city, so it's a 6.5K track up the hill. And at the top, I was coming down, and another bloke was walking up the stairs, and I recognised something wasn't quite right. The way he was walking and talking, and he sort of said, "Oh, is there anyone else at the top?" I said, "Yeah, mate, there's two other blokes up there, but they're outdone, and they'll come down." And he sort of dropped his head, and he walked up, and he was carrying a Bible. I thought to myself, "Yeah, something's not right here." So waited at the bottom of the stairs, waited for the other two blokes to come down. I walked back up, and as I got to the top, he was sort of over the railing, over the cliff face. And I guess part of that, the mental health first aid training, was I was able to ask if he was okay. I had the tools to talk to him and understand that, again, it's a moment in time. There's there's two paths that we get to take, and there's a decision we get to make. And that's exactly what I said to him. I said, mate, you're not going to believe this, but 2 years ago, I was exactly in your position. I had a decision: do I follow that path or do I change? I said, and obviously I'm here today, so let's talk about it. Let's find out what's going on. Let's delve into the issues as best we can, and let's talk about it. And at the end of the conversation, he's like, "Man, you saved my life," and jumped on his motorbike and rode away. And I was like, "What on earth just happened?" Like, today of all days. But it's sort of the training from mental health first aid. It's you sit through it and you're like, "Am I ever going to need this?" Like, this is great stuff. It's great content, and you can pinpoint. And I think part of it is how I learned how to pinpoint what was going on in my life. But then things like today happen, and you just you go into auto mode and just start talking. And you know what? 95% of the time, that's what it is. People just need to talk.
Yeah.
And they need someone that genuinely wants to listen. It's okay to ask your mates, hey bro, are you okay? Because that's what you have to ask when you see your mates having a crisis. But it's something different to actually sitting there and going, hey man, I see something's not right. Let's talk.
Yeah.
But they're two very different conversations. And I think the more men that realize that men need men, it's great. I'll probably get punched from my partner later for saying that, but yes, we need women, and women have their place in the right. I don't mean that derogatory. They have their place. We can talk to them about certain things, but women don't understand men the way men do.
Yeah.
And a part of that's where the men's gym next year, it's about men helping men. I love the fact that a man can reach out to a man, put his hand on his back and say, mate, are you okay? And it changes the other bloke's life. I love the fact that camaraderie amongst men can change lives. I love the fact that exercise can change lives. Like there's so many different layers to it. I think that's the part of the gym is let's work out together as a group of blokes. Let's sweat, let's hurt. Then at the back of it, we're all mates here. Let's just sit down and have a chat. If you don't want to talk, don't talk. If you want to sit there and listen to everyone else's story and pick parts out of it, let's do that. If you listen to a story and go, hey man, last week I dealt with that, this is how I did it, let's do that as well. Like it's about, let's make better men. So they're better partners, they're better dads, they're healthier dads. It's about, I know myself, when I go home now, I've got the energy to play with my kids. I have that, I guess, the ability to push all the other stuff aside, because I know later I'll go to the gym and I'll deal with it then.
Yeah.
Right now, in this moment in time, it's about my son or it's about my daughters. It's about, let's give them the time and energy they need.
Yeah.
And I'll deal with my stuff, but just not right now.
Yeah. Right. There's another great reason why, the decision you made 2 years ago, helping another man, to be able to just even speak to him. Like you said, like that's majority of the time, that's all they need, just to feel like they're heard, like they matter. And your vulnerability to share, your story with him, and obviously coming on to the podcast as well and all that. That it helps so many men in ways that we wouldn't think that would really matter, but it really does. And it helps even our kids to see that vulnerability is strength. It's like it's not a weakness. That it's it's healthy for you to let it out. You don't have to keep it all in.
Definitely, it's my son. So my son's 4. He asked the other day. He said, "Dad, do you cry?" And your initial response is, "I don't cry. I'm a big tough man." But then you sort of you think about it. You're like, "Yeah, dude, I do. Dad cries. It's
Yeah.
I'm still big and tough, but yeah, I cry. I let it out. If I hurt myself, 100% I cry.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah. And, you even just having that response, who knows what a difference that makes in your son's life. Like you mentioned before, your daughter remembering when she was 4 years old that you weren't able to make her dance recital. But what if you had turned around and you said, no, men don't cry. And then later on, he always kept that in the back of his mind. And he was one of those later on, turns into an adult that just is not able to express his emotions. And so I think that's awesome, dude.
It's about trying to change. I hate the word toxic masculinity because it's not toxic. It's masculinity has changed.
Yeah.
You go to my grandfather's generation, masculinity was being a man, being the provider. The wife doesn't work. They raise the kids. I'm the provider. I do all the tough stuff. I don't cry. I don't show emotions, all those sorts of things. That's not masculinity anymore. Masculinity is being a bloody good dad, raising bloody good humans, so that when we go, our kids know what makes a good person.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that, for me, I want to make sure that my kids, through their schooling, with their friendship groups, all those sorts of things, that if someone's being a bully or if someone is having a bad time, a good human pulls up the bully or helps the person having a bad time. Yeah, that's what a good human does. They don't just shrink away when someone's being bullied. They stand up and go, "Hey, no, that's not right."
Yeah.
And understanding that brings its own stuff off the back of it, but understanding that, hey, I've done the right thing here because it's not okay that person was, verbally harassing another kid. And on the flip side of that, going to the kid that was being harassed and going, "Hey, are you okay?" Like, what they're doing is not okay. And I know we're not friends, but I want you to know that if you ever want to talk about it or you need someone to help you out in this situation, I'm the person.
Yeah.
So,
that's mate, it's a great example to your kids. And in the last 2 years, with all the changes that you've made, how have you found that that's impacted, you being a dad, and how's that influenced your kids?
It's changed, I guess, my perception of what a good dad is. It's prior, my perception of a good dad was someone that worked their ass off, made lots of money, and provided. I guess that's what I thought I had to do. Whereas now, it's about being present. It's about going, "Hey, yeah, I've got work to do. If you hang out for 20 minutes, I'll have the work done. Then we'll go for a swim or we'll have a play or whatever. Or, you know what? Work can wait because it's not a necessity right now. You can wait till later tonight or I can do it tomorrow." It's about, I guess, communicating with them about what's happening. And then I think, I'm a firm believer in kids need to learn what's going to set them up for life, as opposed to what the schooling system, I guess, necessarily teaches them, which my mum's a teacher, so she'll probably hate me saying that, but um, when COVID lockdowns first happened, we did the school stuff with the homeschooling, but we made a conscious decision, my partner and I, that we were going to teach our kids real life stuff. So we taught them where their food comes from. We taught them a little bit about how money works, and they're only 10 at the time and 3, so they didn't need to know a whole lot about money, but more so about how does food get from the paddock to the plate. Not so much what the process is, but slaughtering and all those sorts of things. But let's talk about vegetables to a point, and fruit. How does that work? How does pollination work? And how do we get from planting a tree to having apples? How does that work? And we planted veggie gardens with tomatoes and pumpkins and all those sorts of things. But part of that process is, as you know, bees are the lifeblood of everything. We bought a hive to teach our daughter how it all worked, how pollination worked, and those sorts of things. And as you know, bees produce honey, so we had an excess of honey. And she turned around to me and said, "Hey, Dad, can I sell this?" Oh, yeah, man, you do what you like. Like, we're not going to eat that much honey. If you want to sell it, go your hardest. Yeah. So she, at 10, actually sat down. She designed a company. She designed a logo. She designed the business name, the whole lot, and labeled it up and sells the bottles now. So, I think part of the education piece that we gave them about how the world works, she's sort of gone, okay, that works. That's how that works. I can now make a little bit of money off a bit of pocket money, but she's learned commerce, and that's how the world runs. Let's not
exactly.
Let's not shy away from it. The world runs on commerce. It's the way it is. So and now at 11, she's killing it. I think she's sold something like 100 and something bottles. So
that's awesome.
It's been a journey, but she's surprised me.
Yeah. What a great gift to give to your kids, especially during a time like that. One, the education, but 2, now her mind's open to what's possible. And she came up with an idea herself of, wait a minute, I can actually make money out of this.
The problem is I'll end up working for her one day.
Mate, who knows? Hopefully she becomes the biggest honey distributor in Australia. But and it was all came from the the COVID experience of homeschooling.
I'll make sure I charge her for the experience.
That's it. Mate, there's so many great things that you've been doing, and I want to acknowledge all that, because you are a great man, a great father, and a great husband, and all the challenges that you've been able to overcome have created the man that you are today. And I wish you all the best of luck with everything you're doing to inspire men, and with your gym next year. I think that's a great concept, not only to be able to add in the physical health side, but also the emotional and the mental side for guys to be able to share. What a great concept that if we just took that group training and just having that downtime towards the end, just to
adding a little bit.
That's all it is. So before we go to our final thoughts, everyone, appreciate your support building this community, and would love for you to subscribe, like, comment, and continue to help us grow this community of Resilient Dad, and to be able to have more dads like Ashley on to grow and help other dads. So, Ashley, mate, could you give us your final thoughts?
Oh, look, we've said it before. I think my final thoughts are, reach out to your mates. Like, don't, if you see a mate that's struggling, whether it be they're struggling financially, whether they're struggling emotionally, whether they're missing their kids, they're missing their partner's left them, whatever it may be, whatever they're struggling with, sit down, have a genuine conversation, because your mate's for a reason. Like, it's not I'm not asking you to go out and pick some bloke off the street. Start with your mates. Start with the people you already have a relationship with, the people that already love and care for you, and have a meaningful conversation. Don't pussyfoot around it. Don't half-ass it. Have a meaningful conversation, and make sure it goes both ways. I think that's the one thing that is important in relationship building. It's a two-way street. Give a bit of yourself, and you'll get a bit of someone else back. That's how it works. And if you give enough, I think the men of Australia will be a lot healthier, and we'll stop. We won't stop the statistics, but we'll make sure that we can reduce it.
And that's the thing. It's just one man at a time. And if we can start with the people that we know, that's a great start.
Somewhere.
So everyone, I got a lot out of today's episode, and I hope you did also. And I just want you to always remember that you're stronger than you think you are. So stay resilient. Hey everyone, I really appreciate you listening to today's show. It means a lot to me that you're part of the journey and mission to help fathers be the best dads possible. I'd really appreciate it if you'd review the show and share it with someone you genuinely believe could benefit from this content. Please visit resilientdad.com for more content and resources as we build this community for dads everywhere.